Welcome to the Herd in the Corridor podcast, a podcast about making sense of business within the US-India corridor and beyond. I'm Angela Chitkara. I am honored to introduce you to a gentleman who has been behind the scenes and thinking big on a grand scale in solving everyday problems. He enjoys challenges and relishes in the problem-solving process. When he was head of demand generation and marketing of the Unique Identification Authority of India, spearheading the Aadhaar project more than 15 years ago, he explained how a biometric card would change the lives of many in India. It was hard to imagine and understand it till I understood the application of the card through talking to everyday people. At the time, I remember being so moved by his ambition in wanting to change the lives of so many through public-private engagement. His response to me was, quote, emotional octane that kept him doing what he does. It is my pleasure, my honor to introduce you to someone who has been behind the scenes, quietly but urgently doing the work. Shankar Maruwada, co-founder and CEO of EkStep Foundation, meaning first step in Hindi. Welcome, Shankar.
Thank you, Angela. It's a pleasure to be on your podcast and to be conversing with you again.
Thank you. Thank you, Shankar. Talk to us now about that emotional octane and how it has fueled the work that you've done throughout your career with the Aadhaar Project, meaning Foundation, and the work you are doing with the EkStep Foundation, a not-for-profit to improve basic literacy for millions of children. Co-founder and chairman of Infosys and founding chairman of the Unique Identification Authority of India, Nandan Nilekani, has brought you along with him on these projects, as well as his wife, philanthropist Rohini Nilekani. Tell us more about these socially impactful projects you continue to work on. How is the Indian culture intertwined in the work you have done? Shankar?
Emotional octane is a phrase I use when you go beyond intellectual octane, when you go beyond financial and resource octane. To me, emotional octane is what comes about when you're inspired to do something way beyond your and your organization's capabilities, where the belief in the need to make that vision a reality, the belief in your ability to journey till that destination is reached, is what propels you forward, is what gives you energy, is in spite of all the ups and downs of any long project, allows you to get up on a Monday morning, to get back to work, to get back into the ring, as a matter of speaking. So that is emotional octane, a very useful booster pack at times when you have doubt, when you're short on resources, uh, and something which has benefited me a lot. Over the last 15 years, as we have been part of many projects together, population scale, is the same emotional octane that led Nanda Nilekani, Rohini Nilekani, and myself to found EkStep Foundation, where, like in Aadhaar, Nandan had set a goal of reaching 600 million people in 5 years and subsequently a billion in 10. Just the need to reach that goal and the promise of what would happen to the country if we reach that goal created that emotional octane. And for those listeners who are unaware, we reached 600 million with 6 months to spare, 4.5 months, as a government project. And billion was reached with a full 2 years to spare in 8 years.
Wow.
And uh, Aadhaar, also known as Foundation, is now the basis of a lot of India's digital transformation and continues to inspire the rest of the world. As EkStep Foundation, a lot of us who worked on Aadhaar came back together, but this time as a philanthropy in Aadhaar as part of government effort, The goal was no less challenging. We had at that time 250 million children in India. We said in 5 years, by 2020, we want to be able to reach 200 million children and improve their access to learning resources. Again, tremendous emotional octane without really having an idea of how we'll do it. But this is where a deep understanding of the culture of India helped us, which is, if you look at India not as a young democracy of 77 years, but more of a multi-millennial civilization. There are some aspects which are in the core of any Indian, no matter their uh, ethnicity, religion, socioeconomic strata. And my Aadhaar wanderings and on the ground learning led me to just two words through which one can get the core essence of India, and through that what differentiates us from other civilizations, which is dharma and karma. Dharma, which is the nature of things as they are, and karma, which is the law of action, right? And this formed the basis of a lot of the branding, which resulted in the name and the brand identity of Aadhaar. At EkStep Foundation, we used a lot of these principles in understanding the mindset of parents, of teachers around education. And that allowed us to create a strategy of inclusive innovation, a strategy of public-private partnership, a strategy of incomplete by design, which means what I'm creating can only be completed by a partner, stronger together. And a lot of these learnings allowed us to come close to achieving our goal of 200 million by 2020. So we're still not done. There's a lot more to go, but it's been a very exciting journey so far.
Shankar, what is the DPI, or the digital public infrastructure? At the G20 meetings last year in New Delhi, the term was unveiled to the world as artificial intelligence, or AI, is now very much part of the mainstream discussion.
Digital public infrastructure is an encapsulation of the lot of ideas we have been working on, not just us, but others around the country and the world. Let me explain it with a simple example.
Sure.
The US in the early 20th century built a lot of roads, the national highways. They formed the physical infrastructure which propelled the country forward. Railroads, roadways, these are all physical infrastructure. Once they are built, it allows commercial players to innovate on top. It allows innovation to happen. What if the government had not built the railroad or the roadways? What if the government had not built the basic foundation on which internet was created, digital infrastructure? What if the government had not open sourced GPS to the world? So GPS and internet are digital infrastructure. Roads and railways are physical infrastructure. What do these do? They lay the basic foundation for innovators to create solutions on top. This is again a good example of private-public partnership. We took that core idea, implemented it on Aadhaar, where the government built the digital infrastructure of giving a unique digital identity and proving it on demand. And a lot of innovations have come on top of that. And Aadhaar formed the bedrock on which other digital infrastructure was created. Digital identity was Aadhaar, digital payment is UPI, digital locker allows you to store documents, digital consent allows you to sign documents remotely. Uh, so all of these were different pieces of digital infrastructure. The same idea as EkStep Foundation we took to education, where we helped to create a digital infrastructure for school education in partnership with the government of India. That is called Diksha, which is an acronym, where the acronym itself is digital infrastructure for knowledge sharing. So Diksha became a school education infrastructure on which the various boards of education, we have 60, who teach in various languages in India. We have 20 plus, and the 9.5 million teachers we have. So the entire complex, massive, diverse ecosystem could ride on this digital infrastructure, this digital railroads created. And that in education is what today is serving the bulk of India's schooling system. Likewise, we have digital infrastructure for health in India. We have a digital infrastructure for toll gates, that's called FASTag. And each of them does one thing and provides one service very well. But the power is when these various digital infrastructure come together. Like what happens when you have the HTTP protocol and the HTML protocol come together, you get internet. What happens when the internet meets GPS, meets payment, you get the rise of internet commerce. Right? So this is a phenomena well known and documented globally. In India, we have just modified that for inclusive innovation. We have modified that for a strong public-private partnership to solve not just for growth and innovation, but for inclusion and development. That is the unique thing that's happening in India over the last decade or so.
So when I was in your office less than a year ago, I remember having a conversation with you as you were just days away from releasing, the new curriculum in India. So, please give us an update on that. And as you've now revamped the educational curriculum for India, and the world is watching, what makes India's educational system so unique today?
So in 2020, after around 35 years, we revamped our national education policy that came in 2020. One of the core pillars of that was to reform the curriculum. And I'm one of the National Steering Committee members. And we are in the process of revamping the curriculum. We have come out with a revamped curriculum for foundational learning and school education. And we are now in the process of doing the same for teacher education and adult education. What is unique about this revamped curriculum is it's the first major curriculum by a major power in the 21st century, which means it takes into account the needs and the realities of the 21st century, while rooting itself in India's ancient culture and heritage. So it strives to balance who we are as a people with what our ambitions and aspirations are in the 21st century. It acknowledges that our diversity of a 1.4 billion people is a source of strength. And therefore, each area, each geography, the education there has to happen in the local context, while obviously maintaining a core Indian ethos. It also takes into account the latest scientific learning, developments in neuroscience, and talks about a holistic, multidisciplinary level of learning. And at early years, play as the best way of learning. So it brings in a lot of science without warping, without uh, damaging the core fabric and the essence of India. I think that delicate balance is what it has done well. It has been well received. And now, as a country, we're in the process of creating teaching learning material to implement these in schools. And early feedback has been very good. In fact, some of the other countries have looked at the document and are being inspired by parts of it as they are figuring out their own curriculum.
You had mentioned inclusion, and I know that that was a heavy, that was one of the major tenets of the Adhar project. How would you define diversity, equity, and inclusion in the context of India and the work that you're doing?
That's an excellent question. One point I forgot to mention about the curriculum framework is it stresses a lot on technology, on how to leverage technology to also take into account the diverse needs of learners, the need for inclusion, the need to give a different and a special kind of attention to various learners of various categories. So the role of technology and the role of digital infrastructure have been stressed upon in the curriculum. Coming to your question, technology plays or has the potential to play many roles. Given India's linguistic diversity, we are already seeing solutions, artificial intelligence with India's diverse languages. Where I speak in one language, you can understand it in your language. So diversity of languages is being taken care of. Diversity of social context. So digital platforms that allow every area to create their own content within the larger curriculum. Then content and technologies for the differently abled. That's also an area where intense amount of focus is being given on. A lot of parents are semi-literate or literate. How can they engage with their child's education? How do you leverage technologies like audio technologies, speak to the phone, simple and most ubiquitous tools like WhatsApp, uh, a whole host of other solutions, digitization of data so that data is available to administrators to understand the learning levels of children and therefore give special attention to those who need it more. Digital training for teachers so that teachers can get trained in the comfort of their house. So efforts are on across a whole host of persona, teachers, parents, children, administrators, community. And here again, there is very active involvement of the not-for-profit sector, and in some cases, the for-profit sector also with government to figure out what is the best solution, what is the right level of partnership, where should non-profits lean more, and what's the role that for-profits can play. Uh, so there's a lot of work happening. It's early days, but it's really exciting time to be in education in India, especially looking at the role of technology.
Well, Shankar, there's one thing that I do know about you that, you make it seem so easy, as if, this is something that just happened. But I know, having had the honor of knowing you for several years now, over a decade, I know how methodical you are, and your team, and how committed you are. And so these projects that you're working on don't just appear. It takes a lot of investment of time and resources, as you had mentioned, ups and downs. It's not easy, I can imagine.
Yeah, it's the process, Angela. As it is that, right? Uh, uh, but to be fair, it's not just EkStep Foundation. There are a whole lot of people, right? The real fun, like the proverb says, if you want to go far, go together, right? If you want to go fast, travel alone. So there are a lot of people all bound together by a unique opportunity, a generational opportunity to help India leapfrog, where technology can play a vital role. No different from the US in the 1850s to 1880s or the 1930s to 1960s. So every once in a while, a generation gets a chance to do something. It's our chance. So it's more of uh, gratitude for getting the chance to serve.
Shankar, much of what you do is through public-private partnerships, as you had mentioned. These partnerships are unique in the India market. As more companies enter the India market and more investors invest, what should they know about India that is not necessarily apparent?
First, in India, anything and its opposite are both true. Uh, it's extremely difficult market at one level, but the good news is anybody succeeding in India, they have a much higher chance of succeeding anywhere around the world. And that is why one is seeing a new breed of Indian multinationals in a digital era, where having succeeded in India, they are now much more confident of going out there and succeeding in other parts of the world.
Mhm.
But to succeed in India, one has to overcome many, many, many friction. The low outlay friction. People do not have much money to afford high outlay, right? So small sachetized packets of value. The so in a sense, what I find both challenging and exciting in India is it's your ability to design the right product. It's your ability to crack the right business model so that you can still make profit. And most importantly, and what I believe is the greatest ally, people fundamentally believe in the power of technology,
Mhm.
which is not a given in other parts of the world. Because by and large, over the last 20 years, technology has helped the common man. Technology has leveled the playing field. Technology and demographics has created the idea of an Indian dream, where the only barrier to meeting your aspiration is being given a chance to do so. Give me a level playing field and then see how I can fly. Right? Give me a level playing field and then see what I am capable of. And we've seen a lot of such Indian stories. And that to me is the big idea and opportunity in India. Give people a chance to meet their aspiration, they will reward you. The innovation, specific innovation can be different. Flipkart tried it with uh, cash on delivery. Right? PhonePe tried it with a UPI based payment system called PhonePe. Google Pay succeeded. Right? All kinds of innovations, but getting the value equation right is the fundamental thing in India.
Shankar, so at the recent Milken conference in Los Angeles, there was a panel discussion about the American dream, and that there were many definitions of what it actually means to Americans. What is the Indian or India dream from your perspective?
As I said earlier, society in India, by and large, is one that has a belief in themselves. Young demographic, the power of dreams, the power of aspiration. So, in a sense, the Indian dream is give me a chance, I will make it. Whereas the American dream is all about you work hard enough, you can make it. Ours is a bit more nuanced. I will work hard, no questions asked. Level the playing field because we have so many inequities. We have so many barriers, right? And that is what projects like Aadhaar and UPI and other digital infrastructure projects are doing. They are demolishing the barriers to access. One by one, they're demolishing the frictions, leveling the playing field. And now it's up to me and my talent and my hard work, right? But give me a chance. Not all of India gets the same chance, which is an unfortunate reality, but a reality which has been addressed to a great deal over the last 2, 3 decades.
Shankar, one of my favorite quotes is talent is universal, opportunity is not. You made me think of that. So I'm often asked by asset managers and family offices, what is the India growth story? Through your lens and the work you've done, what is the India story, both domestically and globally? It's a different question from the Indian dream that I just asked. And for those who are comparing India to China or other emerging markets, how is it different from other markets?
The India domestic story largely is one of consumption. Provided the right product, there will be consumption.
Mm-hmm.
So any goods or service or technology that is packaged well with the right value equation will get consumed. And especially with technologies like artificial intelligence coming, the trend will only accelerate. That's the Indian domestic story,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the more the product helps in reducing barriers to access, the more it helps in creating opportunities, the greater its chance of success. The two most obvious ones in the field of technology are WhatsApp and YouTube. People buy a phone for WhatsApp and YouTube because through one, they can communicate WhatsApp, they can even sell their products on WhatsApp in Indian style, even get paid money on WhatsApp because of UPI. And YouTube is a source of entertainment, knowledge. It's the biggest training university in the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And uh, between these two, a lot of data consumption happens. And they've completely transformed access to information and access to knowledge and opportunity. I see a lot more such products coming out in the next few years. And whoever brings that will succeed massively. This is the India story. The global story is talent from India delivering goods and services around the world, especially in a AI fueled world 10, 20 years from now, you just need tech savvy people who are aspirational, who can deliver services remotely. And we've seen the rise of India's IT industry over the last 3 decades. This time around, you needn't even know English because AI will take care of that, right? Remote health support services, remote agriculture support services, contact centers, etc., is already a done deal. This is the bright side. Of course, India will also lose a lot of jobs because of AI, right? But on balance, using India as a human resource hub for delivery of services around the world is a very big idea. Essentially, it's the talent base of the massive young population we have. Who can figure out how best to leverage that and create value out of it will be huge winners.
Shankar, so according to a recent article published by the IMF, India will be among the fastest adopters of AI in the world as it addresses societal problems. As you focus on making educational accessible for all, how do you see India's workforce and talent progressing? I believe there is a statistic that there are close to 300,000 students from India who study in the United States every year. Today, also, we have more and more multinationals that have gone from being risk averse to being fully vested in the India market in the past 20 years or so. More than 40% of many of the American multinational corporations' employees are based in markets like India. So, how do you see the global talent workforce of the future, and where is India?
Thus far, the Indian workforce working in multinationals all need to know English. In India, if you need a technical education, you need to know English. That's a huge barrier. We see AI as the primary set of technologies, and we have been working on it for the past 5 years, where not knowing English need not be a barrier. This allows the potential where anybody can learn the field of their choice and not be limited by not knowing a particular language. When that happens, what we have witnessed so far, the statistics you talked about in multinationals, is just the tip of the iceberg. Less than 10% of India is comfortable in English. And a fraction of that is skilled enough to be employed by multinationals. Imagine if that language barrier is restricted, is the restriction is removed. Imagine if learning is not constrained by language. The number of Indians who can learn, be eligible for global jobs, join the workforce, and deliver value remotely will be exponentially higher than what it is now. Combine that with a young and hungry workforce, which is not afraid of technology, but ready to embrace technology because they see it as a great help. We would have a whole lot of youngsters who are fearlessly learning new things, trying out new things, paying money to learn new skills as it is already happening. A lot of the learners of Khan Academy, Coursera are already Indians, which shows that if there's a good product somewhere, Language need not be a barrier. Geography need not be a barrier. And if entrepreneurs can create the right product that fits the market and get the product market fit right, they will be rewarded with tens of millions of users. And those Indian companies that have cracked this, they are the ones who are now the new Indian multinationals ready to take on the world. They have realized the potential, but you have to be in India to feel the energy. You have to be in India, get your hands dirty to solve the tough problems. And there are many. It's not an easy market. There are barriers of language and many access barriers, but to those who are patient, confident, it is a once in a generation opportunity. Digital technologies have a dual edge property. On one hand, they can discriminate against women if mobile phones are not in the hands of women. But as mobile phone becomes ubiquitous and more women have them, it's also creating the opportunity for women to access knowledge and participate in the economy remotely. It's early days, but that is an exciting potential of digital technology. Aadhaar was the first national program where you could declare your gender as male, female, or the third gender. This is 15 years ago. First time ever, right? So there are these little uh, flashes of inspiration. There's a lot more work to be done, but these little things give us hope that we could leverage technology for inclusive purposes and not just for propelling innovation. There's a lot more that needs to be done. Identification of differently abled in education, learning, those who are differently able learning or physically differently able, right? Uh, we know it has to be done. We are looking at what's the kind of technology that allows to cover the whole country. It's a process when we are far from it.
Right. So what is in closing, what is your outlook over the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years?
I think in a world that is troubled by so many things as we are, the geopolitics, climate, urban migration, suddenly the whole bunch of problems India has to solve doesn't feel unusual anymore. On the other hand, the way we have been systematically solving it over the last decade and a half, gives me hope that over a 10 to 20-year period, the situation will change from others looking at India, maybe admiring, maybe not, but that will change to over the 10, 20 years to looking up to India. And I think that leadership role is what India can and should rise up to over a 10 to 30-year period. And that's always exciting to be. Imagine living in the US in 1870s. Not easy. Imagine living in the US in 1930s or 1950s, right? You know it's a special time. You know you can, that sense of belief, right? It's not easy. Not every country has it all the time. Right? We are a young democracy, 76 years. So to give you a sense, we are roughly where the US was in 1850, right? Uh, and historical perspective, 1851 was the great exhibition held in London. That's the first time Europe woke up to the power of US to innovate. The first time that US innovations were showcased. And Victorian England and the rest of Europe said, whoa, we didn't know this, right? India is just about the same time that the world is waking up to the technological prowess of India and many other feats being performed by Indians. We have a long way to go, right? But that sense in 1850 that as America, we are on our way to being a good, great country, right? Might still be 25, 30, 40, 50 years away. That belief is there in India now. Not among everybody, but it's palpable. There is obviously a whole lot of problems we have. No different from US in the 1850s, 70s, etc. But to that extent, I'm just grateful that I'm getting a chance to do what I love doing best, and a chance to make a difference to hundreds of millions of people.
Thank you so much, Shankar. You are an inspiration. And this is, I guess, India's World's Fair moment, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The 1851 was the trigger for the 1876 Philadelphia Fair and the Chicago Global Fair and all that. So yeah, the G20 might have been our World Fair moment.
Yeah, that's great. Such a pleasure, Shankar. Thank you so much.